Okay, what if everything you've been told about fitness is incomplete? All right, every January, millions of people make the same promises. Every year, it's this is my year, right? This is the year they'll finally lose weight or build muscle, get stronger, get healthy, stick with it for the entire time. They're changing their lives. All right, for a few weeks, the gyms are packed, meal prep containers are filled in the fridge, people buy supplements that they've never heard of, they download workout apps, they order new shoes, some lifting belts, a heart rate monitor, a new watch, gym clothes, shakers, pre workout fat burners, everything. Motivation's everywhere. And then life happens. All right, the alarm goes off at 5 in the morning, they hit snooze, work gets busy, the kids need attention, a vacation comes up, someone gets sick, they miss a workout, then another, then another. 3 months later, the treadmills become a clothes rack. The gym membership is still being charged, and they're right back where they started. I remember you've been there. I know I have. Most of us have. But here's a question nobody asks: why? Why do intelligent, hardworking people fail at fitness over and over again? Is it because they're lazy? No. It's because they don't want it badly enough. I don't think that either. Is it because they don't have enough discipline? Sometimes. But it's usually not where, that story begins. Most people don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because they were never taught how the human body actually works. Imagine trying to build a house without understanding how the foundation supports the structure. Imagine trying to fly an airplane without learning the instruments. And imagine trying to repair an engine without knowing what each part does. It wouldn't matter how motivated you were. Without understanding the fundamentals, your chances of success will always be limited. Fitness is no different. Somewhere along the way, we replaced education with entertainment. Instead of learning principles, people learned hacks. Instead of mastering the basics, they chased shortcut after shortcut. And instead of building habits, they chased motivation. Social media rewards what grabs attention, not necessarily what's true. One day you're told carbs are the enemy, and the next day you're told carbs are essential. One coach says you need to train 6 days a week. Uh, the other says you're going to overtrain. Don't train that much. And someone promises six pack abs in 30 days, and someone else says this supplement will melt fat away while you sleep. Every week there's another miracle, another secret, another trick. And if you've ever felt overwhelmed, you're not alone. And here's something I want you to hear before we go any further. It's your confusion is understandable because the fitness industry often profits from making simple things seem complicated. The more confused people become, the easier they are to sell another program, another supplement, another challenge, another fitness tip or secret that this person has. But the human body's never cared about marketing. Your muscles don't know what brand of protein powder you drink. Your heart doesn't care which influencer you follow, and your bones don't know how expensive your shoes are. Your body responds to biology, not a trend, not somebody's opinion, not the algorithm of your Instagram. It's just biology. And that's what this whole series is about. No hacks, no gimmicks, no fads. We're going to go back to principles. Because once you understand the principles, you no longer have to memorize the answers. You can figure them out yourself. That's the difference between following a program and just becoming your own coach. And by the time you finish what we're starting here, I don't want you to need me. I want you to understand training so well that you can evaluate new ideas, ignore bad advice, make smart decisions based on evidence instead of emotion. Whether your goal is to lose 50 pounds, build to your first pull up, run a faster 5K, deadlift 500 pounds, serve in the military, become a better parent, or simply live long enough to play with your grandchildren, the principles are the same. Your body is designed to adapt, it has always adapted, and always will. The question isn't whether your body is changing. The question is, what are you asking it to become? Every choice you make sends your body a message. Every workout, every meal, every hour of sleep, every walk or stressful day, every recovery day, every decision, it's a vote for the person that you're becoming. And whether you realize it or not, you're always training for something. You're training to become stronger or weaker, healthier, sicker, more capable or less capable. There's no pause button. There's only adaptation. So before you ever touch a barbell, before you count a calorie, before you download another workout, before you buy another supplement, let's start where every great coach should start. And let's understand why the body changes in the first place. Because once you understand that, everything else in fitness begins to make sense. Welcome to what I'm calling the Operational Strength Academy. All right, you're probably wondering who I am. Well, I'm Mike, and I've spent years coaching people in the gym and time before that in the Army, learning what it takes to actually be capable when it counts. All right, for the next 52 weeks, I'm going to be your coach. All right, not through a program. I do have programs. I have one-on-one coaching, and I go through all this with my clients. But this full year, it's going to one lesson at a time until you understand your body better than most personal trainers will ever. All right, this is the Operational Strength Academy, and here's what this name actually means. All right, it's operational. It doesn't refer to the military alone. It refers to a standard. It's your body working the way it's supposed to under real demands in real life. All right, not a body that just looks strong in the mirror under perfect lighting. It's a body that performs when the moment isn't convenient. All right. So, when you have to carry your kid and a stroller and a couple bags of groceries up 3 flights of stairs, when you have to move a couch by yourself because nobody else showed up to help, when your job asks something physical of you and there's no warm up period. All right. And then strength it's the foundation that makes all of that possible. Not the only quality that matters, but it is the foundation everything else is built on. So operational strength means this: a body trained to perform, not just to look good in a certain way or certain lighting. That's the whole philosophy in one sentence. Now, here's what makes the Academy different from almost everything else you'll find. Most content is built to be consumed and forgotten. A video, a trend, a 30-day challenge. This is built to be a library, 52 episodes, each one evergreen, each one still true 5 years later, because we're not going to chase any trends throughout this entire time. We're just going to be teaching principles. And by the end of the year, you won't just have followed a program. You'll have built a foundation of knowledge that lets you evaluate any new program or new claim, any new supplement that comes across your way, to know within 30 seconds whether it holds up at all. That's the actual goal. Not to keep you dependent on me, to make you your own coach, to make you understand how like a coach's mind works. We're going to organize this year around 4 pillars. And I want you to hear them now so you have a map of where we're headed for the next 52 weeks. Pillar 1, that's going to be your strength conditioning. The training itself, how to lift, how to program, how to build a body that produces force and sustained output. Pillar 2 is going to be your nutrition, what to eat, how much, when. It's going to be stripped of any fad diets. It's going to be built on the evidence that actually supports it. And pillar 3 is health and recovery, sleep, mobility, joint health, the things that let you train hard for decades instead of just for a month or two. And then pillar 4, it's mindset and tactical performance, the discipline, the standards, a real world application that ties the other 3 together. All right, every week for the next year, we'll build one piece of this system. And by the end, you'll have all 4 pillars fully constructed in your hands. All right, I'm not going to promise you this will be easy. It's not going to be easy for me. It's not going to be easy for anybody doing this. I'm not going to promise you that there's a shortcut, because there isn't one. And anyone who tells you that there is, they're probably selling you something. But I will promise you this: if you show up every week, all 52 of them, and you do the work between each video, each episode of this, and not just watch it, you do the work, you will become a different person by the end of the year, stronger, healthier, more capable, more disciplined. That's not just some motivation bullshit. That's just what happens when you apply real principles consistently over a year. So from there, I want to welcome you to the Operational Strength Academy. Let's talk about why most people fail. Because until we're honest about this, nothing else in this series will matter. And I've got a few reasons here. Reason one is they treat fitness like a sprint instead of a system. They pick an end date, a wedding, a summer, a New Year's resolution, and they train like the goal is just to survive until that day. And they don't build something that lasts past it. All right. The body doesn't work on a deadline, right? It works on an adaptation. And the adaptation takes weeks, months, years of consistent work, not just that 1 week that you tried. And reason two is they chase different programs instead of like building principles. They find a workout on the internet, they follow it blindly for 2 weeks, get bored, plateau, and jump on to the next one. Every program restarts this clock, and none of them ever get followed long enough to work. And if you've done this, I've done this, I'm not judging you. We've all done it. And almost everyone has. But it's worth naming honestly, because if you can't fix the pattern, then you're not going to fix what's happening, right? Reason three, it's a all or nothing thinking. They miss one workout, and instead of picking back up the next day, they treat it as proof the whole plan failed. One skipped session becomes a skipped week, becomes a skipped week, becomes a skipped month, and then by the end, you're starting all over again. 3 months have passed, and you feel like you're back at zero, because you probably are. Especially if you're just beginning. More than likely, you're back at zero because you're just beginning. And the truth is that missing a workout costs you almost nothing. Missing a single workout costs you almost nothing. Quitting because you missed that workout, it's going to cost you everything. All right. Reason four, they ignore recovery completely. They think more is always better. More cardio, more workouts, more intensity, no rest days. And instead of getting stronger faster, they run themselves into the ground. They get hurt, they get sick, they burn out completely within 2 weeks. And then recovery isn't the reward for training hard. All right, recovery is the mechanism that makes training hard work. And reason five, and this might be the most important one, they never build the system. They just rely on some motivation. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, motivation is a feeling. And feelings are unreliable by nature. They show up kind of whenever they want, and they disappear the same way. All right. And we're going to do this built on discipline. And discipline is a system. It doesn't ask how you feel, it just asks what's on the schedule, and you go do it. Every person who has trained consistently for years, every soldier, every competitive athlete, every coach worth listening to will tell you the same thing. They don't feel like training most days. Most days suck, but they train anyways, because training is not optional. It's just what they do, the same way, brushing your teeth isn't optional. That's the difference between someone who trains for 3 weeks and someone who trains for 30 years. Now, here's the good news of all this bullshit is that none of those 5 reasons, right, are about any willpower, genetics, or some trait that you were born with or without. They're about information and systems, and both of those you can build starting today by watching this video. And that's what the rest of this series is for. We're not going to give you another 30-day program or some with an expiration date, okay? We're going to give you an actual owner's manual for your body, the one you should have gotten years ago, so you understand why training works, why nutrition works, why recovery works, and how to build a system around all three that doesn't depend on some motivational bullshit to survive like a bad day or week. And then before we get into any of that, though, I want you to understand one thing about your body that kind of changes how you'll see every workout or meal in recovery for the rest of this series. Is your body isn't a machine that wears down. It's a machine that adapts. And let's talk about what that actually means. Here's a simple principle that'll change how you see every workout for the rest of your life. SAID, specific adaptation to imposed demand. SAID. Translated into kind of plain English, it's your body becomes good at whatever you consistently ask it to do. Ask it to lift heavy things, it gets better at producing force. Ask it to run long distances, it gets better at sustained effort over time. Ask it to sit at a desk 8 hours a day, it gets better at that too. Tight hips, weak glutes, rounded spine that struggles to stand up straight by hour 6. Your body doesn't know the difference between a demand you choose and a demand life hands it. It just adapts to whatever it experiences the most. So it's not a metaphor or some fucking bullshit sentence. That's physiology, right? And it happens at every level of your body, from your bones to your nervous system. And let's kind of take a look at 3 pretty simple examples here. The first one's going to be bone density. When you load a bone through walking, running, lifting, tiny stress signals trigger cells called osteoblasts. They lay down new bone tissue. The bone gets denser and stronger, specifically in the areas that experience the load. For another example, astronauts who spend months in zero gravity, bone loses density rapidly because there's no load, no demand, so no positive adaptation. And then you got calluses. If you pick up a barbell for the first time with your bare hands, it feels rough, your skin might tear. You do it consistently, and your skin thickens exactly where that friction happens. And your body, it's not just kind of guessing where to put this callus at, it's responding to that direct, specific, repeated demand. And then, running or cardiovascular capacity. Run consistently at a moderately hard pace, and over months, your heart's left ventricle adapts, gets slightly larger, more efficient, pumping more blood per beat. Your resting heart rate drops, your VO2 max, the measure of how efficiently your body uses oxygen, climbs. None of that happens by accident. It happens because you gave your body kind of a repeated specific demand and it adapted to meet it. All right, this is the mechanism behind every single physical change you'll ever experience, positive or negative. And here's the part that kind of nobody ever gets taught about this is adaptation requires three things in sequence. And if you skip any one of these, the whole cycle breaks down. All right, stress, you need to impose a demand on the body significant enough to signal that a change is needed, right? Not comfortable, not effortless, a genuine stimulus. It's a stress on the body. The next one's going to be recovery. The actual adaptation doesn't happen during the stress. It happens afterward when you rest, sleep, and eat enough to rebuild. That's why training isn't automatically better, or like more training is automatically better without recovery. Stress just accumulates into kind of damage and instead of converting into an adaptation. And then adaptation, given the right stress and the right recovery, your body rebuilds slightly stronger, slightly more efficient, slightly more capable than before. Then the cycle kind of repeats at a new higher baseline. Stress recovery adaptation. Every good training program in the world, no matter what it is built on this three-step cycle. If a program breaks one of these steps, either by providing no real stress or no real recovery, it's going to fail regardless of how good the exercise selection looks on paper, right? So I want you to kind of sit with the implication for this for a second because it's bigger than just fitness, right? Your body's always adapting to something. There's no kind of neutral setting, there's no pause button for it. And right now, today, your body is adapting to whatever you ask of it, whether it's a hard training session or it's 8 hours in a chair, 5 hours of broken sleep, or a walk with family after dinner. You were always training for something. The only question is whether you're choosing it on purpose. That's what the rest of this series is going to teach you to do. Choose the demand you place on your body on purpose so that adaptation that follows is something you actually want. Next, let's talk about what we're actually training you to adapt towards. The four pillars that together define what it means to be capable. So I told you earlier that adaptation is not optional. You're always adapting to something. So the real question becomes adapt towards what? That's what these four pillars, what I've created, the four pillars, everything we build for the next year fits under one of these four categories. And I want you to understand each one before we start because they'll shape every single episode that follows. Pillar one is going to be your strength and conditioning. This is the engine room, the actual training, how you lift, how you build conditioning, how you program a week and a month and a year of work that makes you stronger, more resilient without breaking you down. Quarter two of this academy lives almost entirely here. The big lifts, movement patterns, programming systems that stood the test of time and not just some bullshit trending movement that you saw on IG. All right. Pillar two is going to be nutrition. Training builds that stimulus. The nutrition builds the material your body actually uses to adapt. You can have the best program in the world, and if the nutrition underneath it is wrong, you'll leave most of your results on the table. Quarter three is full masterclass here. Calories through hydration, no fad diets, no elimination gimmicks, just evidence explained simply enough that you'll never need to ask, is this diet legit again? You'll be able to answer it yourself. All right, pillar three is going to be health and recovery. This is the pillar most people skip, and it's the one that determines whether you're still training 20 years down the line or sidelined by an injury or two. We're going to go through sleep, mobility, joint health, stress management. This is what allows stress from pillar one to actually convert into an adaptation instead of accumulating as damage. We'll come back to this constantly throughout the year, building towards a dedicated focus in quarter four, which is, and then pillar four, mindset and tactical performance. This is the pillar that ties the other three pillars together. It's the one no amount of programming or macros can substitute for. Discipline, consistency, the ability to show up on the days that you don't feel like it, the capacity to apply everything you're learning under real conditions, whether it's a demanding job, physically hard season of life, or simply daily discipline of doing the work when no one's watching. I put this pillar last on purpose because it's actually the foundation everything else stands on. You can know everything about training, nutrition, and recovery, and none of that matters if you don't have the discipline to apply it consistently. So while we'll build out the other three pillars across the year, this discipline specifically, is something we're going to reinforce every single episode starting today. So here's how your year breaks down. All right, quarter one, the 13 weeks we're in right now, builds your foundation across all four pillars at once: training basics, nutrition basics, recovery basics, and mental framework to hold it together. Quarter two, it goes deep on strength conditioning. Every major lift, it's going to be mastered. Every major programming system is going to be explained. Quarter three goes deep on nutrition, a complete system you can run for the rest of your life. Quarter four brings it all together under operational strength, tactical fitness, work capacity, joint health, and the capstone episode that ties the entire year into one framework you can return to indefinitely. All right, by week 52, you won't just have watched 52 episodes, you'll have a complete evidence-based system across four pillars built 1 week at a time that will outlast any trend the fitness industry throws at you next year, the year after that, for 5 years down the line. This is the architecture. Now let's talk about what all of this is actually for, because fitness, right, it's used so loosely in our culture that most people couldn't tell you what it actually means, and we're going to define that. Ask 10 people what fitness means, and you'll get 10 different answers. Looking lean or running a marathon, benching a number on bench, fitting into an old pair of jeans. None of those are wrong exactly. They're just incomplete. And that incompleteness is exactly what keeps people chasing the wrong things for years. And here's the definition that we're going to use for the rest of this academy. And I want you to hold on to it because it's going to be the filter for every decision you make about training and recovery from here forward. Fitness is capability, not a look, not a number on a scale. Capability, your body's actual ability to do things under real demands without breaking down. And capability isn't one thing. It's made up of at least 10 qualities, and a serious training approach has to account for more than just one or two of them. And the 10 are as followed: strength, the ability to produce force; endurance, the ability to sustain effort over time without your output collapsing; power, the ability to produce force quickly, not just strong, but explosive when it matters; speed, how fast you can move from point A to point B; mobility, your joint's ability to move through a full controlled range of motion; durability, your ability to absorb physical stress day after day, year after year without breaking down; body composition, the ratio of muscle to fat on your frame, which affects nearly every other quality on this list; health, your internal systems, blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, hormones, functioning the way they're supposed to; longevity, whether the way you're training and living today is setting you up to still be capable at 70, 80, 90; and mental resilience, your capacity to push through discomfort, stay disciplined under pressure, and keep showing up when it would just be easier to quit. All right, it's 10 qualities. All of them matter. And most programs, most coaches, they're only going to program for one or two. They're going to optimize for one or two and kind of ignore the rest entirely. For example, a bodybuilding approach might build some really incredible muscle and great body composition, but it's going to leave endurance and mobility and durability almost completely untrained. If you go like a pure cardio approach, it might build incredible endurance, but strength and power are going to erode and just fall apart. And neither of these are wrong. They're just narrow. And narrow training produces a narrow result. And a body that's good at one thing, it's vulnerable everywhere else. So here's the test we're going to use throughout the entire academy. Every single week, every single decision, does this make you more capable? Not, does this look impressive on camera? Not, is this the newest trend? Not, will this get the most likes? Does this make you more capable across as many of those 10 qualities as possible in a way that holds up for years, not just a few weeks? That question is going to filter out almost everything that doesn't matter. It'll filter out all the fad bullshit diets, the gimmick workouts, the supplements that are promising a shortcut that doesn't exist, and it'll leave you with training and nutrition built on an honest goal, becoming a more capable version of yourself for the rest of your life and not just for the first couple months of a new year. And that's what we mean when we say fitness, right? It's not a look, it's a standard. And now that you know what we're training towards, let's get into some actual science on how your body builds two qualities most people start this journey chasing. It's muscle size and strength. Let's get into the actual mechanism. How does muscle actually get bigger? At the simplest level, muscle growth, what we call hypertrophy, happens through three primary pathways working together. The first is mechanical tension. When you load a muscle under a real challenging resistance, individual muscle fibers experience tension they're not used to. That tension is detected by receptors inside of the muscle cell, and it triggers a cascade of signals that essentially tell your body this tissue needs to get bigger and stronger to handle the next load. Of the three pathways, mechanical tension is the most powerful driver for growth by like a wide margin. All right. The second is muscle damage. Training specific or especially in the eccentric or the lowering portion of a lift creates microscopic damage in the muscle fiber. Your body responds by repairing that damage, and in the process adds a bit more tissue than there was before, similar to how a scar rebuilds thicker than the original skin. It's a real contributor to growth, but it's a smaller piece of the puzzle than most people assume and have for years, right? And chasing like extreme soreness for the sake of it's not an efficient strategy for growth. And then the third it's a metabolic stress. This is what we call the pump. It feels amazing. It's awesome. It's what you feel during a set. That burning fullness sensation caused by the metabolic byproducts accumulating in the muscle. It contributes to growth signaling as well. Again, it's a supporting factor. It's not the main driver. And what matters practically is all three of these pathways get triggered effectively by one thing, and it's what drives it the most: progressive overload, gradually increasing the demand you place on a muscle over time, whether through more weight, more reps, more sets, a better technique that increases the effective tension on a muscle. Once the mechanical signal happens, the actual building process occurs afterward during the recovery phase through a process called muscle protein synthesis. Your body uses amino acids primarily from a protein, from the protein you eat, like steak, chicken, fish, eggs, protein shake, to repair and build new contractile tissue inside the muscle fiber. This is why training without adequate protein intake levels leaves so much potential progress on the table, because the stimulus will be there, but the raw material to build isn't. All right, this entire process, tension, damage, metabolic stress, followed by protein synthesis during recovery, repeats every time you train a muscle group with a real progressive stimulus. Do it consistently over months and years, and the muscle fiber cross-sectional area increases. That's what muscle growth is. At the actual physiological level, that's just what biology is, and that's how you grow. And then next week, we're going to spend an entire video episode on this topic, walking through exactly how to apply this, how much volume you need, how closely to failure you should train, how often you should train each muscle group, and where genetics kind of fit into that picture. And for now, I just kind of want you to walk away with the mechanism because once you understand why something works, you stop kind of needing everyone to tell you what to do. You can just evaluate it on yourself. All right, so that's muscle. Now let's talk about a quality that's related, but it's not identical: strength. And here's the question that confuses a lot of people. If muscle size and strength were the same thing, the biggest guy in the gym would always lift the most weight. And that's not how it actually works. And understanding why is going to change kind of how you train. Strength and muscle size are related, but they're not the same adaptation, and they don't come from exactly the same mechanism. Muscle size, as we covered, comes primarily from mechanical tension, driving structural growth inside the muscle fiber. Strength, the ability to produce maximal force, depends on that structural size, but it doesn't just depend. But it's not just that, right? It depends just as heavily on our nervous system. And so, again, in practice, your brain doesn't activate every muscle fiber in a muscle every time you use it. So you'll see in untrained individuals, they typically only recruit a portion of the available motor units, the nerve and the muscle fiber units that produce force, even during a maximal effort. Training with heavier loads teaches your nervous system to recruit a higher percentage of those motor units and to recruit them more quickly. This is called improved motor unit recruitment, and it's one of the biggest reasons beginners get dramatically stronger in their first few months of training, often because their muscles because they've always been capable of that force. The nervous system just hasn't been trained to do it or use it. And then the second neural adaptation called rate coding, which is how quickly your nervous system fires signals to muscle fibers. All right, so faster rate coding means faster force production, which matters enormously for both maximal strength and explosive power. There's a third factor: intramuscular coordination. Most of your lifts, like a squat, deadlift, press, aren't produced by a single muscle. They're produced by multiple muscle groups working together in a coordinated sequence. Training a specific movement pattern teaches your nervous system to coordinate that sequence more efficiently, which is a major reason why practicing the actual squat will always, almost always, make you better at squatting in a way that a leg extension alone never will, even if the leg extension builds just as much muscle in the target area as a squat. And then finally, technique, like a more efficient bar path, a better setup, or a stronger brace. All of this allows you to express more of the force you're capable of producing without changing your muscle mass or your nervous system alone, right? This is why coaching and practice matters. Again, I have one-on-one coaching. I can, and I offer it, but that's why this is probably the best reason to get coaching, is so that you can create a more efficient bar path and better technique. All right. Because you can have two lifters with identical muscle mass, identical nervous system, can have significantly different strength numbers purely based on how efficiently they execute a movement. And we're going to put all that together to say, if your primary goal is strength, you need heavy loads, low to moderate reps, focused practice on the actual lifts you want to get strong at, and enough recovery for your nervous system, not just for your muscles to adapt. And if your primary goal is muscle size, you have more flexibility in the rep ranges and exercise selection because the driver is just mechanical tension across a range of loads, not maximal neural output. Most people that are training in the gym, they benefit from both. And for a majority of what we're talking about, that's exactly what we're going to build towards: a body that's strong, well built, using training that develops both qualities together rather than kind of sacrificing one or the other. All right, so now we're going to get practical, and we're going to kind of like look at what should your actual first 12 weeks look like starting tomorrow. Everything we've covered so far is the why. Let's get into the what, because by the end of today, I want you to know exactly what to do, Saturday morning, or if you're starting your work week, your work's on Monday, right? Here's the simplest truth about the first 12 weeks is they don't need to be complicated, and they shouldn't be. Beginners respond to almost any reasonable training stimulus, which means the biggest risk in your first 3 months isn't picking the wrong program. It's picking something that's so complicated, you can't stick with it, or it's so intense, you burn out and you get hurt before your body has built the tissue tolerance to handle it. And so here's the framework that we're going to go with. All right, so for frequency, we're going to train 3 to 4 days a week. Probably just start at 3. That's going to be enough to drive a consistent adaptation without requiring a level of recovery capacity you just haven't built yet. Full body sessions are fine, or a simple upper lower split is fine. Both of those work well, especially if you're just beginning. All right, your exercise selection is we're going to build every session around a compound movement, exercises that use multiple muscle groups and joints at once, like a squat pattern, a hinge pattern, like a deadlift or a hip thrust, a push, a pull, and some core work. All right, that's going to be the skeleton, kind of the bare bones of nearly every effective beginner program ever written, regardless of what's branded on it. All right, our rep ranges, we're going to stay mostly in the 6 to 12 rep range for all your main lifts. This range builds strength and muscle effectively, and it's forgiving enough that small technique errors won't get you hurt the way they might at a very heavy, low rep loads before your technique is like kind of squared in. All right. And then progression, this is the part that everybody kind of skips. That's why you have that guy in the gym that's been there for 5-6 years, looks the exact same, lifts the exact same. And it's the part that matters the most. Every single session, you're going to try to do slightly more than you did last time. It doesn't mean just weight, right? You know, it could be 1 more rep, 5 more pounds, a cleaner set. You're going to write it down, and because if you're not tracking your numbers, you're not really training with any sort of intent. You're just moving weight around and hoping something happens. Which brings me kind of to the single most important habit of your first 12 weeks. It's keeping a log, a notebook, or a note in your phone. It doesn't matter where it's at. I have an app you can use. You can also use the First Form app, which I've used for years. You're going to write down what you lifted or how many reps at the end of every single session. This is like a non-negotiable. It's the difference between guessing your fucking workout and knowing what the hell you're doing. It's the tool that will let you see in black and white that this is working. All right. And the expectations for the first 12 weeks, especially if you're new to structured training, you will experience what's called novice or newbie gains. It's a rapid improvement in strength driven mostly by neural adaptations we covered earlier. Don't mistake this rapid early progress for your new permanent rate of progression. Okay. It will slow down, and that's not you failing, right? That's just a completely normal physiology. It's normal. We all slow down at some point. And anyone who tells you that you should be adding weight to the bar every single week forever, they've never coached any real people. They've been using ChatGPT for all of their programs forever. All right. And then around week 6 or 7, we're going to plan a deload. All right. And then it's a lighter week. Deload is what we typically just call it a deload. It's a light week, roughly 60 to 70%, even down to 50% of your usual intensity. You're going to let your joints and your nervous system kind of fully recover before you push into the second half of these 12 weeks. And again, you're not just being weak or some bullshit. This is a planned part of that stress recovery adaptation cycle. Okay, it's just at a bigger scale than, I worked out today, I need to recover today, I need to sleep and eat and all that stuff. And now it's part of weeks, right? And underneath all of it, this is fucking important. Sleep 7 to 9 hours a day. I know it might be impossible, but try to get that 7 in. Then you're going to eat enough protein, roughly your body weight in grams per day, as a starting target. If you have like 50 to 60 to 70 pounds to lose, like you're massively overweight, let's say you're 280 pounds, you want to get down to 200, then you're going to eat 200 grams of protein. Okay, let's keep it simple. All right. And I mean, we're going to go, way deeper on that in the nutrition and recovery in the coming weeks. But kind of those two habits alone, sleep, protein, will do more for you in the first 12 weeks than any kind of advanced training technique that you see on IG or Twitter or TikTok or whatever, right? And so this is the roadmap. It's simple. It's an evidence-based build, and it's built to just be followed easily by anybody, whether you work 12 hours a day or you stay-at-home mom. Okay, I want to tell you a story because I think it's kind of going to explain the philosophy better than kind of any study that I could ever cite. All right. Early on in my Army career, I remember a stretch where the schedule was brutal. I was an infantryman in the 101st Airborne Division, super high up tempo, constantly fucking training, prepping for deployments, stuff like that. And we had early mornings, it was physically demanding days constantly, not much sleep in between. And there was no version of that schedule where I felt like training more or eating perfectly or doing anything beyond the bare minimum that was required of me. But the standard didn't care how I felt, it didn't matter. The standard was the standard. Every single day, regardless of how much sleep I'd gotten or how sore I was from the day before, it didn't fucking matter. And here's what I've learned from that is that something that took me years to fully translate into civilian coaching is that people that succeed long term, whether it be in the military, in the gym, and anything worth doing, are not the people who feel motivated more often than everyone else. They're the people who built that system that doesn't require motivation to function. All right. When I started coaching, I watched this play out constantly. The members who showed up for years, who actually transformed their bodies, their health got stronger, got in better shape, were almost never the ones who were the most excited on day one. Uh, they were the ones who treated their training schedule the same way they treated any other commitment in their life, like a real commitment. It was a non-negotiable. It wasn't up for debate based on the mood or how they felt. And I had a client early on. I'm not going to use their real name here, but they told me that they had tried dozens of programs before. Like they were fit before, and then they got out of shape, and then fit again. But like it was just always a yo-yo thing. And they tried every program under the sun, and everyone started super strong. But every one of them kind of fell apart after a couple months because the moment that like things got hard in their life and motivation for the program disappeared, there was no system underneath to kind of catch the fall. And what we changed for them wasn't just like a better program. Even though I believe my programming is top tier, it wasn't just a better program. We didn't reinvent anything special. We changed what we thought was the real issue, and we created a real schedule for these people and created a real system for them. All right. And then they treated every single session like a standing appointment. All right. The same way you treat a shift at work. It wasn't optional. Not dependent on how the day was going or how it felt. There's just something that happened throughout the day. It was like the sun rising. All right. 3 days a week, whether they felt good or not, they trained for 3 days a week and they transformed their life. A year later, that same person was transformed. And it's not because they found, the secret sauce, right? It's because they finally stopped relying on motivation, right? And they just got disciplined. And that's the lesson I want you to take from this chapter. More than any of the science that we've covered, motivation will get you through like week 1, maybe through a month, but it's not going to get you through week 52. Here's the mission of the week. All right, here's your homework for this week. It'll take you like 15 minutes or less, and I want you to do it before the next episode goes live, which is next Friday. We're dropping one every Friday. First, you're going to open your calendar right now, today, and schedule 3 to 4 training days. I'm suggesting 3 for this week. All right, not sometime this week. You're not going to do it sometime, specific days and times, and treat it exactly like a meeting you can't move or an appointment you can't move. So if it's not on the calendar, it's not a plan. You're just hoping that it gets done. Second, you're going to get a notebook, or you're going to open a blank note on your phone, or you're going to download either my app, or you download the First Form app, links down below, and you're going to start actually logging, right? You can go blank app on your phone, training log. This is where every single session from this point forward gets recorded. The exercise, the weight, the reps. Starting your first session this week, write it down before you leave the gym. And then third, and this one matters more than it sounds like it should. All right, you're going to write down one sentence answering this question. Just one sentence. Why does becoming more capable matter to you specifically? Not a generic answer, All right, your actual reason. Take a deep dive into it, and maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's a physical standard for your job. Maybe it's simply refusing to be weaker than the version of yourself next year than you are today. And you're going to write that down. You're going to put it somewhere where you'll see it on the hard days, because you will have hard days. We all do. And a real reason is what carries us through them. When motivation isn't there, we're not fucking motivated to do it. All right. So that's it. It's 3 tasks. Takes you about 15 minutes to do, and you need to do them today. That's today's homework. All right. I got a final challenge for you. All right. Let's bring this all together. All right. Now you understand why most people fail. You're right. It's not a lack of effort, but from a lack of systems and understanding. You understand that your body is an adaptation machine, right? Always responding to whatever demand you place on it, whether you choose that demand on purpose or not. You know the 4 pillars this entire academy is built on: strength and conditioning, nutrition, health and recovery, mindset, and tactical performance. You know what fitness actually means. It's not a look, it's a standard of capability across strength, endurance, power, speed, mobility, durability, body composition, health, longevity, and mental resilience. You understand at a real physiological level how your body builds muscle and how it builds strength, and why those two things, while related, aren't identical. And then you have a roadmap for the first 12 weeks, 3 to 4 training days. Again, go with 3 compound movements, training log, and a deload around week 6. So that's not a small amount of knowledge. That's more than most people learn in the first 3 to 5 years in the gym. And you got all of that today. Here's my challenge to you before we close: is you're going to complete your homework today. All right, not this week, today. Get your training days on a calendar and start your log and write down your reason. All right, because a year from now, the difference between the person who transforms and the person who's exactly where they are today is what they did with the information like this, with this information. It's not whether they had access to it. Everyone watching this now has access to it. It's free. It's on YouTube. It's on, if you're listening on Spotify. What separates them is whether they acted on it. All right. We're not here for mental masturbation. We're here to get it done. And then what you can expect from next week is we're going to go deep on one of the most misunderstood topics in all of fitness, is the truth about kind of building muscle, right? We're going to go into mechanical tension, volume, intensity, frequency, training to failure, and where genetics kind of fit into that picture. And so if you've ever wondered why some people seem to build muscle faster than others, or whether you need to train to complete failure every set, that episode's going to answer it with just pure evidence. All right. So until then, this is the Operational Strength Academy. And so let's get after it. See you next week.